One second, I'm just testing the audio. Trying to. Trying to. All right, Shalom. Before I begin this lesson, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha, Kwekdash, for giving me the spirit to do this lesson. Lord willing, it's edifying to the elect. Double honors to the elders and the apostles, great millstone, who rule well, the leaders of all Israelites in these end times, showing us correct way of salvation. And the prophets, they are the prophets that the Lord has sent, all right, to destroy the lies of Christianity and to lead us to the truth. So you'd be wise to cleave to them. Double honors to the elders, the apostles, great millstone. Shalom to Aquaf in order, meaning you Israelite sisters that are in order. And shalom to you brothers on highways and hedges teaching this gospel in all sincerity and in truth. And shalom to you Israelites that look like these other races of people, but your seed line goes back to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, making you a Hebrew Israelite, because it ain't about color. It is about the chosen seed line, which was scattered among all nations. Therefore, we're going to look like all nations. Being a Hebrew Israelite doesn't mean you have to look like Wesley Snipes, okay? You can look like any race of people and be a Hebrew Israelite. Therefore, we're not the black Hebrew Israelites, as people call us in ignorance, because in proving how simple they are, they don't have a clue what's going on. They don't have a clue what we're about. You know, they just willfully ignorant at this point, man. But anyway, it's very important I bring that out in my intros. But the title of this lesson: what are they plotting? And they meaning E. What is E plotting, man? What is E up to, man? And the reason I titled it that is because, I've been coming across a few things lately about alien disclosure, and the simple will believe every word, man. But a prudent man is going to look well to his goings, roughly paraphrasing. But, we ain't going to fall for the okie doke so easily like these masses, man. They sheep, or they fall for everything, because they lack the truth, Once you're grounded and rooted in the truth, you can't be deceived by these lies and these plots and schemes and wiles of the devil, okay? Let me share my screen real quick. I'm gonna play a clip for you, because what Esau's doing, he's having a meeting, or he had a meeting with pastors in America. I guess they're mega church pastors. And we've been trying to tell you for the longest that Christianity is set up to snare you, to redirect you, to misdirect you, to, lead you away from the truth. The very place where you think you're getting the truth is the very place they focus on deceiving you, because it's very important that they don't allow you to receive the truth. And shalom to the brother Judah, Yahweh Hashem Yahushai Barakatah, the water for joining my live again. As always, faithful follower, man. Appreciate that. Lord willing, my lessons are edifying. Even though I ramble a bit. But, and Lord willing, you're doing good, brother. But yeah, so apparently they met up with these pastors in America to discuss alien disclosure, what they call aliens, little green men, right? Now, we don't teach nothing about aliens. We don't teach that. The Bible doesn't say anything about aliens, man. Okay? Because if they were important for us to know concerning salvation, then they would be in the Bible. If they existed, they would be in the Bible, because But 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 being that they're not in the Bible, we shouldn't focus our attention on that, man. We shouldn't be concerned in these matters that aren't conducive or conductive to our salvation, man. You know? But concerning this alien topic, listen, we don't know the half of what Yahweh Bashim Yahushai has. But it ain't important for us to know all that right now. We're gonna know everything in the kingdom of heaven. Okay, we're gonna know everything. We're gonna know what's out there, you know. We're gonna know what the earth looks like. We're gonna know all sorts of things that we don't really know as of yet. You know, all these theories and stuff's gonna be laid to rest because it's not impossible for the Lord to have other beings that have intelligence. You know, people talk about aliens and all that. Now, there's nothing in the Bible that speaks on aliens, but it's not impossible that there is something that the Lord has that He created that we just don't know about yet. It ain't our time to know about it. I'm not saying there is aliens, but I'm saying it's not out of the realm of possibilities because Yahweh Shem Yahushai can do anything, man. And it would make sense that there are other things other than us. But as far as what's flying around in those chariots, the Lord could have little helpers flying chariots. Who knows, man? I don't know. We'll find out. But we know that the Bible speaks about the chariots being the angels, okay? And that's what we lean upon. All that other stuff, it ain't, it's no point in even, you know, wasting your time on that, man. It really is a waste of time. But anyway, like I said, I'm rambling. Let me go ahead and play this clip. Right, I want to start the lesson off with this clip and then we'll get into it. Lord willing, it won't be too long and drawn out. Check this out. And Lord willing, you can hear it. Let me know if you can.
Hold on a second. Are we aware that a few days ago, the Bank of England warned to prepare for economic chaos sparked by the existence of alien life? And this is like major mainstream news have posted about this. Warning issued that alien revelations could spark financial crisis. And this one from The Independent, Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens, says former policy expert. So my question is this. Is there going to be a financial crisis that's triggered by aliens? Or is there going to be a financial crisis that's blamed on the kind of unconfirmable reports of aliens? You know what I'm saying? Like you could kind of flip a switch and then be like, oh, it was the aliens. Or no, what it would actually be is, breaking shocking news, aliens, and then boom, bang, bang, all of a sudden the economy would just tank, everything would go freaking upside down. Is that what they're saying is coming around the corner? Because I already heard people saying in their 2026 bingo card, it's going to be, whatchamacallit, disclosure. Like we're talking, yes, there's aliens, fully confirmed. Here's what we know about them. Now, my question is, because there are some people who don't quite believe in space and don't really believe that we're on a spinning ball. And so for those people, they would think two things. Either these quote unquote aliens were just entities or, creatures from other lands beyond the ice wall. And then, or they would be fully basically a hologram, which we know about that project. It rhymes with Shmroject Shmlumlim. So I wonder, all I know is when I read this, I don't go, oh no, aliens are going to crash the economy. I go, what's the angle here? That's what I think, man. What is this priming us for? This sounds like it's priming us for disclosure. Or you could kind of perhaps sheepishly read this and go, dang, like, thankfully we're being warned, like when these aliens come, we better make sure we got our stuff sorted out. You know what I'm saying? But let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Aliens, ball, flat, Shmlumlim. Are we talking legit or not? Let me know.
So what this video is saying is that the Bank of England must plan. This is a article that was in the paper, in the news and all that. It said Bank of England must plan for a financial crisis triggered by aliens. Former policy expert warns, I guess. Right. So I looked into it. I asked AI to, expound on that. Always truth and no nonsense like music, very edifying. Shalom. So what I used to add a bit of music to my lessons, my videos, when I had more time. But since I've joined Great Millstone, I've been very, very busy. And I've also had to switch up my style on how I do my lessons. It's all part of growth and maturity. Well, I can't say I didn't always have music in my videos, but you know, when you come into the truth, you're in a certain spirit, and then you mature as you go on, um, and that's good. You want to grow. You don't want to remain stagnant and be the same as you were when you first come into this truth. You should be growing, and there should be signs of growth. Shows that you're doing what you're supposed to. Because if you're not growing, there's a problem. There's plenty of growth in this walk. When we first come into this truth, a lot of us don't really understand what we're truly involved in. But as time goes on, you learn the ropes, and it shapes your mind. It makes you more mature, in many aspects, in many ways. But anyway, so yeah, I got a quick article I want to read. Let me pull this up real quick. Actually, let me actually I've got it right. Yeah. Right. So let me read this real quick, right? It says here, let's make this full screen, blow it up a bit. It says a former analyst named Helen McCaw, who left the bank in 2012, meaning the Bank of England, because I was inquiring about, this video, this clip that I just played about, about the alien thing. It says, Helen McCaw who left the bank in 2012, wrote a letter to the governor urging them to make contingency plans just in case the US government confirms alien life exists. Because there's been talk of supposed disclosure, which anything the government puts out as fact as far as disclosure goes, you already know the deal. Us in the truth, we already know that Esau's a liar. We lean upon what the scriptures say about this devil, man. You can't trust nothing that he says. And there's always some dodgy, shifty, sketchy plan behind whatever the hell he's putting out there, man. You just gotta, you gotta sit back and just watch this man, okay? And then eventually everything will come clear as to what he's up to. As of now, it's unclear because this is quite fresh. He's talking about disclosure and all that, and brainwashing pastors into what they're going to tell their congregation as far as the disclosure goes and stuff. Because one thing about Christians, most of them believe that the so-called UFOs, which are the chariots of the Lord mentioned in the Bible, the Christians believe that they're demons, man. And there ain't no scripture that says they're demons. That's just something they came up with because they don't want to believe that it's anything to do with the Most High. They just leaning on what they believe, and it's been passed around like Chinese whispers, and everybody's just running with it, talking about their demons, man. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. Even the Vice President J.D. Vance came out recently and talking about their demons. Who told him that? People just follow the crowd, man. Anyway, the Bible tells us what they are, the so-called UFOs. All right, they're the vehicles that the angels fly around in. They're the chariots of the Lord. We're going to prove this with scripture as we go along in this lesson, right? Anyway, it says let's read up. Let's start again. A former analyst named Helen McCaw, who left the bank in 2012, wrote a letter to the governor urging them to make contingency plans just in case the US government confirms alien life exists. She argued it could cause market panic bank runs, and chaos within hours. I think most people by now already know that the chariots exist, what the world calls UFOs. I mean, there's so many videos out there, there's so much talk on it, even the government coming out and admitting they exist, you know. So disclosure's already been made pretty much, okay, as far as what they know, that there are things out there, okay. With real disclosure is letting the world know that they're the angels and that they're the chariots of Yahweh Hashem Yahushai. That would be real disclosure, but they ain't gonna never disclose that. The top elites, the high elites, so-called elites, they know about that. They know that they're the angels. I believe it's Pope, the Pope. Who's the Pope? Current Pope? I forget his name. Benedict, I think it is. But he apparently recently said that the UFOs were angels. He came out and said that, man. But it didn't make world news like that, okay? Because Esau ain't trying to have the world know that. But I think he spilt the beans. But anyway, so she's talking about making plans in case chaos happens after disclosure. Because America, Trump right now is talking about disclosure as of late. Down here it says the bank itself hasn't said a word about it. They declined to comment. It's one ex-employee's opinion, which is Helen McCaw. It says not an official warning. It says the story blew up because it's wild, but that's the reality. So, it's not officially her saying that, aliens are coming and that, the system's going to collapse and all that because of aliens and all that. It's basically her saying that what if this happens, like panic, bank runs, and chaos within hours. What if that happens after so-called disclosure? That's what she was talking about. And then over in this one, I asked, what is all this talk about disclosure? Because there's a lot of talk about disclosure lately. So I wanted to see what AI had to say about it. It says it's all the buzz around the US government finally releasing secret UFO, which stands for unidentified flying object, which we know them to be IFOs because they are identified flying objects. They are identified in the Holy Bible. It says now called UAP, which stands for unidentified aerial phenomenon. Esau likes to switch things up all the time just to throw you off. Anyway, it says President Trump ordered agencies in February of 2026, that is, to start declassifying records on aliens and unexplained phenomena. And he's been teasing very interesting stuff dropping soon. So he's basically conditioning everybody to prepare for very interesting stuff to be dropping soon, right? Which is either going to be lies, or it's going to be, something that we probably already know, like maybe some images of chariots and stuff like that, man. Maybe some clear ones or whatever, but we've already got all that anyway, okay? It says here the FBI just delivered its first batch, so something's coming. It says this ties straight into the Helen McCaw letter you asked about. She wrote it in January because she saw the U.S. disclosure process already rolling and worried about the financial chaos if they confirm non-human intelligence. It's got everyone talking again, especially with a new Spielberg alien movie called Disclosure Day out soon. And that's just basically Esau trying to condition the world for the return of Yahushai, okay? But they want the world to believe it's aliens when he comes, so that they, so that they freak out and don't accept the so-called new visitors. So that they want people thinking it's aliens. They want chaos, and something to do with this all this talk about disclosure. I believe they're gonna bring something, all right, that's gonna cause some chaos so that they can bring the order. KO, okay, because they're gonna bring in a new financial system, which will be the Charagma, the MOTB, mark of the beast. Okay, they're gonna bring that in the midst of this chaos, man. Okay, because it's their way of trying to say this is the solution to the chaos that we have caused. You know, they're not gonna tell the world we caused the chaos, but they have. When the chaos comes, they're the ones ruling, so they're the ones that have caused it. But what they're going to do as a solution is give you a microchip, which is all a part of their grand deception, ordo ab chaos, order out of chaos. They cause the chaos, bring the order, and then when everybody's getting chipped up, they're going to say, see, it worked. Peace and safety. You know, they're going to say, when they shall say peace and safety, sudden destruction is going to come upon them. And we know that destruction is going to come upon them as they're chipping people, right? All we have to do is resist that mark of the beast microchip for the short period of time, or however period of time. I believe it will be short, for the short period that they are issuing it out, man. Okay, because they're gonna move fast like they did with the C-19 jab. Okay, they're making it mandatory and all that. But the ones that resisted and didn't give in, because we trusted in, you know, the word of the Lord coming through his prophets, and we didn't take it, and it paid off, because then it all got swept under the rug like it never happened, and all these people that took it now have something permanent in their bloodstream that they can't get rid of, while us that stood our ground, the wise ones, hey, we're laughing now, you know. And it's gonna be the same thing with Charagma, man. Okay, Esau gonna make your life rough. It's gonna be worse than the time when they were trying to jab us up. But you know, as long as we stand firm, right, in our belief, in our faith in the Lord, then we're gonna be all right, man. Okay, you know, as long as if the Lord is dealing with you, he's gonna make a way for you to get through it. He's not gonna allow them to pin you down and push a chip in you. It ain't gonna be like that. It's gonna be a case of whether you submit, whether you consent unto them. You have to consent. You have to give your consent, and they know that. Anyway, I'm rambling. Let me read this here. What is Project Bluebeam? Right? It says, because I asked AI, what is Project Bluebeam? I just wanted to see, you know, what the explanation is behind this. It says it's a conspiracy theory from the 1990s by a Canadian journalist named Sergei Monast. He claimed NASA and the UN planned to use holograms, lasers, and mind control tech to fake a second coming of Yahushua or alien invasion, destroying existing religions and pushing a new age one world government with the Antichrist in charge. Now, see, you got to take these things with a grain of salt. That's why it's good to be rooted in the truth of the Holy Bible, coming through the Lord's prophets, man. Because, you know, us of the know, in the congregation of the living, in the body of truth, we know that there's not one Antichrist. The world is waiting for this one man to come fix things in the midst of chaos, and that ain't gonna happen. That's why these people are gonna be full of mass confusion in the coming days, because everything they thought they knew about the Bible they're gonna realize that they were dead wrong. Okay, ain't no Antichrist coming, no one man that's gonna come and be in charge. That ain't gonna happen, man. Okay. And Project Bluebeam, you know, it's not a 100% fact that something like that exists, but we know they have the technology to do that, and we know that Esau is the type to pull off something like that. Okay, so we ain't ignorant to Satan's devices, but you know, something inside me tells me, you know, and it's just me speaking as a man, something inside me tells me there ain't gonna be no Project Bluebeam, man. It's just gonna be the Lord showing up, and they're gonna make out like it's aliens. And we're gonna read I'm going to read to you 2nd Ezra 13 in this lesson, and it speaks about how when the Lord shows up, it's going to look like an alien invasion, man. Okay, so this is why they're prepping pastors, because this time is close. It says here the plan supposedly had 4 steps: fake earthquakes to discredit religious history. I don't know how you can fake earthquakes to discredit religious history, because earthquakes are a part of prophecy, a part of the Bible. So if they fake earthquakes, you're not doing anything against the truth. You're actually helping the truth. What do Esau don't know what the hell's going on, man. He's dumb. Anyway, it says project giant holograms of gods in the sky, which they do have that hologram technology. Okay, and Esau, they weaponize everything, Esau, man, because he was blessed with a sword. So if anything major gets invented, you best believe he's gonna strap a damn bomb to it, so to speak, meaning he's gonna weaponize the hell out of it. Okay, television got invented, which was breakthrough technology and can do a lot of good for people in the earth. But Esau uses it for wickedness to, psychologically damage you in his Hollywood movies and things like that. And the entertainment industry, the music. It says project giant holograms of gods in the sky, beam voices directly into people's heads, which they have that technology too. It says, and stage a supernatural or alien event to scare everyone into accepting the new order. Right? Odo ab Chao. It says, no solid evidence is real. It sounds a lot like an old Star Trek script idea, but people still bring it up whenever there's talk of UFO disclosure. So yeah, that's just a brief overview of Project Bluebeam. Now, I want to bring this out real quick. This is the book of Sirach 5 and 15. It says, be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small. So, don't be ignorant to Satan's devices, and this is the reason I wanted to bring this up in this sense, is because, Esau's up to something, man. But don't be ignorant, understand that he's the devil, he's a liar, he's a deceiver, and anything he's calling the Christian pastors, gathering them together in a meeting, it ain't for our good, man. It's to further deceive the people, man, especially these Christians, okay, that don't have a clue what's going on. Okay, they actually think that that this these government funded churches are preaching the word of God, or the word of Yahweh Shem Yahushai, the word of the Lord. They actually think that they're getting the truth there. A government funded organization, man. Yeah, they're reading out the Bible. The Bible is the truth, but they're not reading it correctly. And this is something that they ain't gonna be able to wrap their heads around, okay? Because they're under a strong delusion. This is Psalm 64 and 5. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune of laying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? And the reason I wanted to bring this out is because, they're plotting something, man. And this is what they do all the time. That's why the Bible speaks about it here. They encourage themselves in an evil matter, meaning they come together in these secret meetings and they plot evil schemes and plans to further snare the world, the ignorant, the masses. They're really coming after the elect, but the elect can't be touched. Okay, there's a saying that people say that, educated people don't make good slaves, and Esau, he's pissed because we have the knowledge of the Bible, which makes us free, and we have a good knowledge of the Bible. The scriptures say, ye shall know the truth and the truth shall make you free. We're free men up here, man. Okay. we're actually free masons. Okay. Mason means a builder. A mason is a master builder. And the Freemasons are those that think they're free, man. But they ain't free. They're still very much a slave to this system, these Freemasons, man. We're the ones that are free. okay? Because Esau can kill the body, but he can do nothing to us as far as like our soul, okay? Our soul is in the hand of the Lord. Our soul is safe, you know, because we trust in the Lord, okay, and not in Esau. And therefore, you know, we're the ones that are truly free, especially understanding the knowledge and wisdom of the Holy Scriptures. It makes us free, man. They encourage themselves in an evil matter. They commune, meaning they communicate, of laying snares, which is traps, privily, meaning privately. So they communicate of laying traps privately, okay? And part of the traps is to snare your mind into believing that aliens exist and that they're coming to get you and take over the world when Yahushua comes, okay? Because it's going to look like an alien invasion, okay? And I'm going to prove this with the Bible in just a second. It says, they say, who shall see them? So when they make these plans, these plots and schemes, they think no one sees them, okay? But the things of Esau are being searched out and exposed, okay? The Lord is lifting the skirt of these devils and exposing them, man. Isaiah 29:15, woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord. Okay, so their secret Bilderberg meetings and all that, they actually think that they're doing that in secret, but the Lord sees all things. The scriptures speak about how the eyes of the Lord are 10,000 times brighter than the sun. You can't hide your deepest thought from the Lord. Okay, it says, woe unto them that seek deep to hide their counsel from the Lord, and their works are in the dark. And they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us? That's these secret elites, these people that call themselves the Illuminati, man, or the Cabal, okay? Now, these people are the ones that this is referring to, okay, which is Lucifer, okay? Lucifer means light bearer, which talking about the elites, the ones that have these secret meetings, okay? And they try to hide their counsel from the Lord's. It says their works are in the dark, and they say, who seeth us and who knoweth us? Because most of the world are ignorant to their devices, but the elect are not, okay? Right, we'll come back to this bit. I want to play another clip. Check this out.
Why in the world would United States government officials be briefing pastors about aliens?
A large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released.
Maybe it has to do with the fact that J.D. Vance says that he believes aliens are demons. And why Trump's spiritual advisor said just a day ago that decisions are being made inside the White House that have left her shaken and deeply fearful about the future. Quote, it's absolutely hell hounding you in every way you can imagine.
So that's I didn't mean to stop that. I meant to pause it. What am I doing? But that spiritual advisor is Paula White, I believe her name is. And what that woman said is that she found out some information that terrified her and all that. So she's one of the pastors, obviously, that went to that meeting. Okay, let me just.
Why in the world?
Spacecraft to prepare your people. And
J.D. Vance says that he believes aliens are demons. And why?
Yeah, like I said earlier, J.D. Vance apparently came out and said that he believes that aliens are demons, and that's the mindset of the simple Christian. You know, they all think that because they're simple. But let's go back to where I stopped it.
So let me get this straight. Scientists and UFO experts in the United States and China have all recently mysteriously died or gone missing. And now the government is telling pastors what to tell you about aliens. What could go wrong? As always, I want to hear what you...
Yeah, so yeah, this, you know, this is the latest, man. They're gathering pastors together to tell them about aliens, right? Which obviously we know aliens is not what's flying around in the chariots. The Bible don't speak nothing about aliens, okay? Now, like I said earlier, could there be other life forms that the Lord has? Yeah, absolutely. You know, and it's more than likely there is. You know, in the kingdom of heaven, we're gonna know these things, okay? But right now, it's not relevant for us. It's not important for us to understand if there's aliens or not, because we're focusing on salvation. How does it help your salvation to know if aliens are real? What they call aliens, like little green men. You know, it's just ridiculous. Now, that's one clip I wanted to play, right? Just sort of giving you some insight as to what's going on with the alien thing and the pastors. But now this is a better clip of that pastor, right? One of the pastors talking about this whole ordeal. Let me just play it.
There were a large number of pastors that had been invited to.
So, I meant to pause it. What am I doing?
There were
so this guy's name, you can see here, his name is Perry Stone. Okay, if you want to look him up, like, you know, and this is the first time I've heard of this guy, is from this whole ordeal. But I found it very interesting because apparently Donald Trump is about to disclose some information that's apparently going to take the world by storm. So this is very exciting times we're living in, man, because there's always something new popping up, always something keeping us on the edge of our seat, man. We're about to really see some stuff in these end times, man. It's exciting. You know,
a large number of pastors that had been invited to go to a certain state to hear some men in the United States government and others share with them a concern that they had. He said, Perry, what they're about to release, from what we're hearing, there's going to be a release concerning aliens and concerning unidentified flying object spacecraft, that some of the people who were in the meeting were telling us as pastors, you need to prepare your people and you need to get ready to answer them for what you're about to hear being released. And some of it has to do with crafts that have been discovered that are not allegedly a part of our planet, and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet. Very strange.
Yeah, because there's all this talk about, you know, them having retrieved wreckage from, you know, the chariots, man, which is lies, okay? You know, the only way that could be true is if the Lord did that, allowed them to have that for some grand purpose that we're unaware of. The Lord could allow them to have a so-called crashed craft. You know, that could be something that the Lord would do, but we just think it's cap. We just, you know, we don't believe Esau's telling the truth when it comes to that, man. You know, but who knows? We ain't got evidence of it. You know, maybe he does have something that the Lord allowed him to have for some reason, but I highly doubt it personally. But anyway,
reptilian-looking creatures and other things that planet and the materials they're made of are not a part of our planet. very strange reptilian looking creatures, and other things that almost sound like something out of a sci-fi movie or an Orson Welles book.
Reptilian creatures, eh? All this talk about reptilians and stuff, man. Cap. Absolute cap. But anyway, I got a, one second, let me go ahead and read what you just said there, brother Judah. He said, before I came into the knowledge of the truth, I used to listen to Perry Stone. He speaks about prophecy and he got it all wrong. Yeah, man. I saw a clip recently and there was a guy, it wasn't Perry Stone, but there was a guy saying that when you see missiles flying between America and Iran, that orbs are going to come out of the ocean, which obviously we know to be chariots. And he said that he gave a date. He said that it was going to happen in April. Well, April's been gone. We're in May now. You know, where are these orbs he was talking about? You know, that's why you just gotta lean upon what the Bible says, man. When it comes to prophecy, these Christians, they are not prophets. They never have been, never will be. They're wannabe prophets, man. You know, the true prophets are, you know, people that work 9 to 5s like us, not people that have mega churches and stuff like that, man. All up on TV and all that, man. You know, we're the ones that possess the truth of the Holy Bible, you know. We're the true prophets that the Lord sent. But let me go ahead and get back to this real quick. We're gonna wrap this up soon. Now, I want to show you, actually, first off, I'm gonna show you Dabu 7 because we got we're getting some real good footage of the chariots now because of the technology we now possess. And Lord willing, this comes out okay and not choppy because I don't normally play YouTube videos. I normally download the video and then play it from my computer because it comes out smoother. But Lord willing, this comes out okay. So if there's any issues, let me know in the comment board. But I want to play this quick.
This is Dabu 7 asking the question, what are we looking at here with this mystery orb? This is wild. This is some of the craziest footage I've ever seen up close, and especially the images now in high definition. If you're unaware, a man named Christopher Bledsoe caught this orb on camera at his home in North Carolina. He shared this about a day ago via Instagram. A ton of people have a ton of questions. And he put out an enhanced version that makes it look a little different, but I'm showing you the raw shot. This is the raw image shot right here. Now, I'm also going to show you an HD, which is not AI enhanced. It's just HD, a frozen frame caught somewhere right here. And you can make out clearly that there seems to be something in the center that you're going to have to decide for yourself what you think it is. But there's clearly something that is like writing that is seen. And with the screenshots, you can see this looks like writing. Many saying Hebrew writing is what it reminds them of. Everyone's got a different opinion out here, but this is pretty wild. When looking at it, slow down in an HD on the right, it's wild looking. You can clearly see there's some form of writing inside of this bubble. Now, if this is some big hoax by Bledsoe, I would like to think that it would get torn apart here rather quickly because people can go in and they can capture what's been edited and you can see what's been photoshopped and all this. But if none of that is there and people are taking the raw footage and they're examining it themselves and they're saying, look, this is what I'm finding. And they're all producing the same stuff. They're saying they're finding letters or something inside of the bubble. Again, this on the right is the best shot that I've seen yet. It's HD. You can clearly see Look at that. That looks absolutely wild. What is this? They look like letters. It looks like writing. Some say this looks like a face of a person or a creature or an entity or something within this orb. Yeah, well, they are light years ahead of us, it seems, in terms of technology that they're releasing to the public, let alone what any kind of advanced civilization or beings or fallen would have. But man, dude, hold on. Dude, that like looks like the head of a Grey.
Yeah, that Dabu 7 ain't got a clue, man. Okay. Ever learning and never able to come into the knowledge of the truth. Because I believe he's an Edomite. Could be a Jake, but I believe him to be an Edomite. Okay. But yeah, he's, you know, he believes highly in greys and all that, reptilians and all that, man. But I wanted to show you this because, you know, that's one of the clearest images that we've seen, high def, of, you know, the chariots, but this is in the form of an orb. Okay. And I believe this is genuine. I definitely do. You know, the way the thing was vibrating, it looks like a bubble of liquid. It looks like a liquid bubble. You know, when you zoom in on a star, it almost looks similar to that. It looks like liquid. But yeah, I thought I'd bring that to your attention. Now I've got another clip I want to play real quick of a chariot sighting that I found on TikTok, man. Okay, check this out.
UFOs are real, and if you don't believe in them, you should. And I'm going to show you a video that shows exactly why you should believe they're real.
All right, so this is what birds look like on night vision. See? Simple arrow flying. You guys know what these things look like. Those are satellites. They're little dots that are moving. They're not stars. They're not planes. They're just moving in a straight line across the sky. That's an airplane. You can see the FAA lights flashing. Nothing to see here. Nothing exciting. Now this thing, what is this? Look at how it's moving. Look at how fast it's moving. And this isn't even it. Just wait. Wait for it. Wait for it. It's turning a little bit. And then 45-degree angle change. Come on! Tell me these things aren't real. Tell me they aren't real.
Yeah, because no aircraft that we possess on Earth does that. Moves at that speed, stops on a dime, and then jumps. Does a 90-degree angle, man. Ain't no vehicle on Earth that does that. Okay. This is Psalms 68. And actually, you know what? I'm gonna come back to that. I don't want to read that now because and there's a reason behind that. We're gonna get to that. I wanna actually start out here in Book of 2nd Ezra, right? Because, you know, all this talk of prepping pastors for so-called aliens, it's just them because they invest billions into these churches, man, to keep people asleep, keep them away from the truth. That's what it's all about. Okay, because the devil runs this world. You really think he's going to allow the truth to thrive in this world? No, of course not. But he allows Christianity and he actually funds it because he knows the truth ain't in there. Okay, it actually works in his favor because it's pushing you away from the truth. It's diverting you away from the truth. But I don't know how I went to 14. It's supposed to be 13. But yeah, so the day of the Lord, like I said, it's going to look like an alien invasion. That's why they're prepping these Christian pastors to tell that to deceive the congregation. I mean, but ultimately, when the Lord returns, it's game over anyway. Ain't nothing pastors can say. Every knee's going to bow and every tongue's going to confess. So it's a bit of a mystery as of now, you know, as to what they're really up to. That's why I titled this lesson, "What is he up to?" You know, or "What is he up to?" or something like that. But let me go ahead and read this. This is 2nd Ezra 13, starting at 1. It says, "And it came to pass after 7 days, I dreamed a dream by night, And lo means look, and look, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. Right? And you'll see where it's going as we read on. It says, and I beheld, and lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. Right? So that man that waxed strong with the thousands of heaven is Yahweh Shai, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. Okay? Who the Christians call Jesus. Right? His true name is Yahweh Shai, and his name matters. That's the name that brings you salvation, pursuant to Acts 4:12. It says here, it goes on to say, and when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. So when the Lord came, when the Lord comes, should I say, or when he came in this vision, he came in what the world calls a UFO, a gigantic one at that. That's why it says when he turned his countenance to look, all things trembled that were seen under him. Because it ain't the Lord like physically turning his head like Michael Jackson did on stage. You know, he stood there for like half hour, then he turned his head and everyone started fainting. You know, it ain't in that sense, okay, that he's actually physically standing there and he turns his head to look and all things trembled. No, it's talking about the chariot, okay? It says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, meaning everyone that was in the vicinity, and the voice coming out of his mouth is the flames coming out of the chariot, the opening of what the world calls a spaceship or a UFO. That's what it's talking about. This is all parabolic language. It's written in a way that the elect can understand it. Okay, it's a very spiritual book, the Bible. Okay, it's not something that you just read and take for face value, because a Christian will read Genesis and say it was a talking snake and Eve ate the apple. You know, but it's not written in that way. It's written in a way that the elect can understand it. It says, and whensoever the voice went out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice, like as the earth faileth when it feeleth the fire. So, you know, the ones that were in front of the chariot when the flames and the concentrated laser beams and, you know, whatever he blasts out of it, when it comes out of it, all they burned that heard his voice, meaning the ones that were in the vicinity, they got destroyed. Okay, because if you're in front of the chariot when this happens, it means that you're a threat, you're being hostile. Okay, and we're gonna prove this as we go along, because there's gonna be a lot of military personnel that are gonna try to attack the Lord when he comes. Okay, and you know, they're conditioning people to get ready for this. Okay, that's why they're saying, oh, alien disclosure and this and that, because when it comes, it's gonna be like, the Trump was right. You know, everybody gonna worship Trump like he's looking out for them. Trump warned us about these aliens. You know, so they're gonna be on Trump's side, on the U.S. military side. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, right? This is 2 Ezra 13:5. After this I beheld, and lo, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of the heaven, meaning all around the earth. The four winds of heaven, four corners of the earth, so to speak, right? It says a multitude of men out of number, meaning an innumerable amount of men, okay? And who are these men? This is talking about army soldiers and stuff. You know, Army, Marines, Navy, you know, the militaries of the world, they're going to stop fighting each other during World War III, which we're, you know, just coming into right now. So it shows you how close this prophecy is. You know, we're right at the doorstep of this prophecy, right? After this I beheld, and lo, meaning look, there was gathered together a multitude of men out of number from the four winds of heaven to subdue the man that came out of the sea. Okay, because when we read up earlier, it says in verse 2, and lo, there arose a wind from the sea, that it moved all the waves thereof. Okay, now the wind from the sea is talking about Yahweh Shai coming in the chariot out of the sea above. Okay, it's talking about the waters above, okay? Because you got to remember that the waters were divided from the waters when the Lord created the earth. You have the water above, and then you have the water below, okay? Now, the Lord is coming out of the sea above. He's coming in a chariot from what the world calls space, okay? And, you know, it may appear that he comes out of the sea from the distance, because, you know, when the sun rises, when you're on the beach and you see the sunrise, it looks like it's coming out of the sea. But really, you know, it's you know, approaching from above or whatever, or the world is turning and it looks like it's coming from the sea, but the sun is above. You know, same concept with when Yahushua comes. It may appear that he looks like he's coming out of the sea. Okay, maybe this is what Ezra saw, but we know that it's talking about the sea above, though. We know that he's coming from above. So it says in verse 6, 2 Ezra 13:6, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain and flew up upon it. Okay, so the great mountain is something that looked like a mountain, but really it's talking about a fathership. Some call it a mothership, right? But it's a grand spaceship, a grand so-called UFO is what that mountain is talking about. It says, but I beheld, and lo, he had graved himself a great mountain, a chariot, and flew up upon it. But I would have seen the region or place whereout the hill was graven, and I could not. And the reason he said this is because he couldn't see the end of this chariot. It was so big. This is why the Bible says that every eye is going to see him, man. Okay? Because this chariot is going to be massive. Okay? And not only are people going to see it with their own eyes, but they're probably going to be seeing it all over the news, the internet, all of that. Breaking news, man. Alien invasion, right? So he couldn't even see the end of it. It says, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him were sore afraid, and yet durst fight. So meaning all those soldiers, the armies that came from the four winds of heaven, the innumerable army, right? They had to follow orders. They had to fight. They had to attack this so-called alien invasion, right? They had to attack the chariots. That's why it says here, and after this I beheld, and lo, all they which were gathered together to subdue him, meaning the armies that came from the four winds of heaven, as we read in verse 5, were sore afraid. They were shook, okay? Because it looks like an alien invasion. And they've been prepped to believe it's an alien invasion, as well as the pastors. And it says, and yet durst fight. So they had to follow orders, and Yahushua, you know, the Lord put the spirit on them to fight. Okay. It says, and lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, he neither lifted up his hand, nor held sword, nor any instrument of war. And why is that? Because he's in a chariot. Okay. When it says that the Lord, when it says that in verse 3, and I beheld, lo, that man waxed strong with the thousands of heaven. The thousands of heaven are the chariots and the angels. It says, and when he turned his countenance to look, he didn't physically turn himself. He turned in the chariot. All things trembled that were seen under him, just like it says here in verse 9. And lo, as he saw the violence of the multitude that came, right? Keep in mind, he's in the fathership that's being attacked. And when he sees them trying to shoot all their bombs and little pea shooters at this chariot, this indestructible work of art, right? It says he neither lifted up his hand nor held sword. Why? Because he's in a chariot, nor any instrument of war. It says in verse 10, but only I saw that he sent out of his mouth, meaning the opening of the chariot, as it had been a blast of fire, and out of his lips a flaming breath, and out of his tongue, which is all in the same region, lips, breath, tongue, meaning the opening of the chariot, his mouth. He cast out sparks and tempests. So it was great concentrated fire or laser beams or whatever came out and destroyed them that heard the voice. Just as we read here in verse 4, 2 Ezra 13 and 4, it says, and whensoever the voice, which is the concentrated fire, the flaming breath, the blast of fire, the sparks and tempest, whensoever the voice, meaning the flames and stuff, come out of his mouth, all they burned that heard his voice. Like I said, this is parabolic language, man. It says, like as the earth faileth when it feel the fire. So, you know, this is what it's talking about in verse 10. That they which were gathered together are the ones that heard his voice and that burned when they heard his voice. That's what it's talking about. So verse 11, it says, and they were all mixed together, the blast of fire, the flaming breath, and the great tempest, and fell with violence upon the multitude which was prepared to fight, and burned them up, every one, so that upon a sudden of an innumerable multitude, nothing was to be perceived, but only dust and smell of smoke. When I saw this, I was afraid. Now Ezra was shook when he saw this, man, because you got to understand, you're talking about armies that come from the four winds of heaven, meaning different countries. It's not just America's military, it's the militaries of the world. They're going to stop fighting each other during World War III, and they're going to turn to fight this so-called alien threat. They're going to come together with a common cause, just like President Ronald Reagan said in one of his famous speeches. If you go on YouTube, type in Ronald Reagan alien speech or something up to that degree, it will pop up, man. Video after video showing you that he said that, you know, if there was an alien threat, we'd have to come together, you know, and put our differences aside for this common cause or whatever to fight this alien threat. And that's part of them conditioning the minds of the people for the day of the Lord, okay? So all the armies of the earth are going to be taken out, and Yahushua is going to take the throne once he does this, but he has to take away the threat first, you know? You have to bind the strong man being Esau, you know, so-called strong. But he's the one ruling. So once you take away their military in one go, as happened in verse 11, what happened there? Then that's what's going to usher in the kingdom of heaven, okay? Because Esau only rules because his sword, his military might, but the Lord come and take that sword away from him. It says after, okay, actually, that's it. I'm going to read on that. We don't need to go any further. That's the point I wanted to get to, right? But I want to show you another chariot video real quick, and then I'm going to continue on with this lesson. We're going to close it out in just a second. But first, I want to show you this. Check this out.
자, 여기 그런데 이때 지금 보셨어요? 슝 보셨습니까? 슝 이거 입에서 나는 소리가 아닙니다. 입은 가만히 있잖아요. 슝 너무 빨라서 잘 안 보이지도 않으셨죠? 자, 이거 말이죠. 슈퍼 슬로우 모션으로 촬영한 장면이에요.
Now you see how
슝 지나갔습니다. 자, 저희가 그래서
now you see how fast that thing moved? You're going to really see it in just a second because it's going to play it. It's not going to play it in slow motion. It's going to play it in regular speed. And you can't even really see the thing going past. It's going so fast. But that's the eyes of the Lord. They're everywhere watching, man. Okay, that's the angels. Okay, ain't no vehicle that man creates going that fast. Okay, and there ain't no bird or no bug either. All right. And the reason I wanted to show this because this is a genuine clip. You know, they played it on the news in China, I believe it is. And Moab told about shung, shung. That's funny, man. Check this out.
슈퍼슬로우 말고 이거를 빨리 돌려서 원래 속도로 한번 재편집을 해봤더니 예 보셨습니까?
Look
오히려
how quick
원래
it is.
속도로 했는데도 뭐가
See
지나간지
that?
모를 정도로 빨리 휙 지나갔죠? 자, 우리가 흔히 알고 있는
Bro, how Esau think he can compete with something like that? And that's just one chariot, okay? The Lord coming with the thousands of heaven. He's coming with thousands of them chariots, man. One chariot could take out Esau's whole army. The Lord is a man of war. Don't forget that.
접시 모양의 UFO는 아닌 것 같습니다. 요즘엔 이런 미확인 비행 현상 UAP라는 표현도 쓰던데 자, 김 기자가 좀 소개를 해주시죠.
네, 경주 간포골프장에서 목격된 장면을 제보자가 촬영해서 보내준
So that's the slow motion, right? Check the slow motion.
목격된 장면을 제보자가 촬영해서 보내준 영상입니다. 골프 연습을 하던 제보자가 엄청난 속도로 하늘을 가로지르는 정체불명의 물체를 발견하고는 촬영을 한 건데요. 슬로우 모션으로 찍은 건데도 굉장히 빠르게 지나가는 모습입니다.
자, 저희가 이걸 놓고도 직접 미확인 비행 물체 이 전문가분 교수님하고 직접 통화를 했는데 잠깐 듣고 가시죠.
지금 그 비행체는 카메라로부터 멀어지는 거기 때문에 그렇게 빠른 가속도에 의한 착시 현상은 아니다. 이렇게
You know, the reason I want to play that is because you saw the speed of that thing and Esau thinking he can fight something like that. But he's dead wrong. This is Isaiah 31:5. As birds flying, so will Yahweh of hosts, meaning the Most High of armies, because the Lord is a man of war. So will Yahweh of hosts defend Jerusalem. And you got to remember, Jerusalem is a people before it's a place. So he's going to defend the Israelites as birds flying, meaning he's coming in chariots. It says defending also, he will deliver it, okay? Because Yahushua is known as the deliverer, and he's coming to deliver the elect of Israel. It says in passing over, he will preserve it. See? Keep it alive, meaning the Israelites. Okay, so as birds flying, that's how the elect are getting delivered, okay? Because the day of the Lord is going to look like what the world calls an alien invasion. As a matter of fact, let me go ahead and further prove that in the Book of Wisdom of Solomon, chapter 5. Here's chapter 5. Wisdom of Solomon 5, starting at verse 1. It says, then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. So the righteous man are the ones teaching on highways and hedges, and they're standing in great boldness before the face of the people that afflicted us, which is a so-called white man. And this is why Christians, they, stuck in a strong delusion, and they condemn us. They think that we're the wicked ones and that we're preaching hate, when really we're the righteous that are standing up against the one that's causing all the problems in the world, man. The Edomite. Then shall the righteous man stand in great boldness before the face of such as have afflicted him and made no account of his labors. So that's what the people are seeing when they see the Hebrew Israelites rising up in these end times. This is what's up. This is this prophecy right here. But it goes on to say, and you'll see where I'm going with this. It says, when they see it, meaning the day of the Lord, they shall be troubled with terrible fear and shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation, so far beyond all that they looked for, because Christians don't believe that the Lord is coming in what the world calls UFOs, because you ask a Christian what UFOs are, and then they're gonna say they're demons. 9 times out of 10, a Christian will say they're demons, man. I've heard it many a times coming out of Christians' lips. on that topic. They actually think that they're demons, but they don't know where they got that from. They just going by what everyone else is saying, because these people have no originality. They don't look into things themselves, you know. They just go by what other people say. So, you know, the day of the Lord is going to be far beyond what these Christians imagine, man. Okay, because it's going to look like an alien invasion. That's why it says when they see it, the day of the Lord, they shall be troubled with terrible fear. They're going to be shook, man. Aliens! And shall be amazed at the strangeness of his salvation. Why is it strange? Because they ain't teaching them in the Christian church that the chariots are coming to deliver the elect of Israel. No. They actually think the Lord gonna come down floating on an actual cloud, when the Bible clearly states that the clouds are his chariots. We're gonna get into that in just a second, right? So, you know, I think that's the point on this, but we'll read a bit further. It says in Wisdom Solomon 5:3, and they, meaning these idiots that, you know, thought that the day of the Lord was going to be how they thought, but it's going to be absolutely different and strange to what they actually think it's going to be. And they, repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit, shall say within themselves, this was he whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. You know, us so-called black Hebrew Israelites, man. That's what they like to call us. And they've had us in derision and a proverb of reproach. We've been a proverb of reproach to them by them calling us hate preachers, you know, a cult. You know, we've heard it all, but this is the proverb of reproach that they've had for us, man. So they're going to be shocked. It says, and they repenting and groaning. They're going to repent and groan for anguish of spirit when they find out who, you know, who they were disrespecting, man. It says, and they repenting and groaning for anguish of spirit shall say within themselves, this was he, these so-called black Hebrew Israelites, whom we had sometimes in derision and a proverb of reproach. We fools accounted his life madness and his end to be without honor, because they actually think that the Lord is going to destroy us if we don't repent, they say, right? When really they need to repent. But they're fools, and they're going to admit they were fools when they find out on that day. Okay? But anyway, I'm going to leave that there because I don't need to go any further on that. This is Jeremiah 4:13. It says, behold, he shall come up as clouds, and his chariots, which are the clouds, his chariots shall be as a whirlwind, okay? Because a lot of the times when you see chariots, they're spinning. It says his horses, right? Horse represents power. Your horse also represents a vehicle, a powerful vehicle. You know, a horse is something that's used to transport you. But the Lord's horses, or form of transportation, it says his horses are swifter than eagles, okay? So as you saw in those video clips I just played, or that one clip with that guy zooming in on the sky, and then you saw the chariots make that stop and then literally take off in a 90-degree angle. That's the horses that are swifter than eagles, okay? That's the Lord's superior technology, man. And you remember in Isaiah, it says, as Isaiah 31:5, as birds flying, that's how the Lord's going to deliver us, right? It's going to appear like birds flying. That's why it says here, his horses are swifter than eagles. It's kind of like watching birds fly, but swifter. They're swifter than eagles. They stop on a dime and can change directions, okay? That's swifter than an eagle. An eagle can't do that. It says, woe unto us, for we are spoiled. So I'm going to leave that there. I think that's it. Yeah. And then we're going to go to the book of Acts, because this is the time when Yahushua was taken up after he rose from the grave. After the third day, he rose from the grave, and then eventually he was taken up in front of a multitude, right? So Acts 1 and 9, it says, and when he had spoken these things, meaning Yahushua, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus, when he had spoken these things while they beheld, right, he was taken up, and a cloud received him out of their sight. So a cloud received him. Okay, he went up into a cloud. Now, what type of cloud is this talking about? We're gonna get into that in just a sec. A cloud received him out of their sight. So this is how, Yahushua left the earth, because he rose after the third day, and people saw he was alive, but then he left the earth. How did he leave the earth? Did he die again? And then some people buried him? No, he was taken up. That's why it says here in Acts 1 and 10, and while they looked steadfastly toward heaven as he went up, behold, two men stood by them in white apparel. Those men were angels. Okay, it says, which also said, ye men of Galilee, why stand ye gazing up into heaven? This same Yahushua which is taken up from you into heaven shall so come in like manner as ye have seen him go into heaven. So the Lord went up in a spaceship, and he's coming back in what the world calls a spaceship, all right? Which are the chariots of the Lord, okay? Because remember, the scripture said a cloud received them. Verse 9. Let me read this again, and I'm going to jump to a precept. Acts 1 and 9. And when he had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, abducted, beam me up, Scottied, and a cloud received him out of their sight. A cloud took him, right? So what is that cloud? Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 104 and verse 3. Who layeth the beams of his chambers in the waters? Who maketh the clouds his chariot? See, the clouds are the chariots of the Lord. They're the vehicles of the Lord. Who walketh upon the wings of the wind? So the point of this precept is right here where it says, who maketh the clouds his chariot? Okay, the Lord makes the clouds his chariot. And that's the chariot that took Yahushua up. And when he had spoken these things while they beheld, he was taken up, and a cloud or a chariot received him out of their sight. It's the so-called UFOs. That's how the Lord's coming back. And what these Edomites are doing is steadily trying to deceive these Christian pastors into thinking that aliens are real and that there's an actual threat. The Lord knows what they told their the pastors. But I wanted to close out with this precept here, right? Psalm 68 and 17. It says, the chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. Even is pretty much is saying which is thousands of angels, okay? So the chariots of the Most High, meaning the clouds, the cloud that received Yahushua, who the world calls Jesus, the cloud is the chariot. The chariots, same chariot that is the cloud that received the Lord, that he's coming back in, it says the chariots of the Most High are 20,000, even thousands of angels. So they're the angels, man. That's what the angels fly around in. And it says the Lord is among them, as in Sinai in the holy place. So the Lord is among them, and he's coming back with them, okay? Because when the Lord comes, he's coming with the thousands of heaven. Let's see if we can quickly pull that up. And it might take a second for me to type this because my keyboard is crap. Thousands of heaven. See, I told you this keyboard is crap. That's So I have to type slow of HEAVEN. All right. Thousands of heaven. What is that precept? It's probably in the Apocrypha. Thousands of heaven. Yeah, it's not going to be here. It'll probably be in the Apocrypha, I imagine. Modify Apocrypha. I swear there was another one that spoke about the thousands of heaven. Or maybe I'm tripping. I probably am tripping. It's probably just 2nd Ezra 13. I swear there was another one though. Thousands of heaven. All right. Well, I'm gonna leave that there. I want to read this quick article. It says Trump, and this is published May 4th, right? So recently, because right now it's the 8th, 4 days ago. Trump drops hints of what's coming in new batch of UFO files set for release. So, you know, they're onto something, man. They're trying to prepare the world for so-called alien invasion, right? And what a time to do that, because the world's already chaotic. They're like, what do we got to lose, man? And they want chaos, okay? So they can bring that fake order. So, you know, it's just very interesting that it's around this time when things are about to kick off. The financial system's about to collapse, you know. And we're entering into the time of Jacob's trouble. Now they're talking about alien disclosure. Very interesting. So it says President Donald Trump says the Pentagon is preparing to release some very interesting UFO files uncovered by his administration, generating a mix of buzz and skepticism as he hints at new revelations around questions of alien life. Trump started stoking interest in the extraterrestrial in February, directing federal agencies to release their records relating to extraterrestrial life and UFOs. Since then, he has built suspense with tantalizing updates, teasing an imminent release of documents never before shared by the US government. So anyway, I ain't gonna read it all because it's quite long. As you can see, it goes on and on and on. And there's different segments, right? Vance professes to be obsessed with UFO files. And this one here speaks about how he thinks that they're demons. Vance said he believes sightings reported to be aliens are actually the work of spiritual demons, see? Because these Christians ain't got a clue, man. Especially an Edomite Christian. But yeah, I'm gonna leave that there. So, you know, Lord willing, you've been edified. Let me quickly read some of these on the comment board real quick. And shalom to the brother Stay True Hopeful 144K. Shalom to you, bro. Yahweh Shemi Awashai Barakatah. Says Khan, the one I seen was about size of the moon, and it was moving slow though. Yeah, I believe that. You know, I got a personal testimony myself when it comes to the chariots, right? And it wasn't till my later years, being in this truth, that, you know, it made sense of what I saw. Because it was 1996 in North Carolina, in Goldsboro, North Carolina. And I was in the countryside, and it was like past midnight. You know, there wasn't anyone around. It was deep in the country. Everyone, you know, sleeping. I believe I was the only one awake or even out at that time. And I was on the front porch, and I looking in the distance, and I seen these green lights, and only one of them was moving, but there was three of them. Two of them were literally just sat there stationary. And then there was one in the middle, and it was going back and forth between the two lights, and they were bright green. And I first thought I was seeing fireflies, but I was like, fireflies don't move like that, because it was the same green glow, the same exact green, man. And it was going like this in a frequency pattern, and it would stop at the one chariot, and then it would go back in a frequency pattern, and then it would stop at the other chariot, and it was just doing that all night until I got bored of watching it. And back then they didn't even have cameras or internet, so I couldn't I couldn't record it or anything. I was just literally sat there watching it by myself. And I to the, you know, for a while I didn't know why I was seeing what I was seeing. I knew it was UFOs. It was undeniably UFOs. But I wasn't too fascinated at that point because I wasn't really like deep into that then. But as time went on, I got more fascinated about it. But being that I'm in this truth now, I understand that they came because they knew who I was. And maybe they were, I don't know, maybe they were trying to see me for some reason, or maybe seeing me before I received the Holy Spirit. Who knows, man? You know, but it's just no coincidence that, you know, I felt like they were there for me that day. And now here I am in my later years, a man of the Lord. So it just, you know, it's really a faith booster, to be honest. Yeah, kind of. Before I came into the knowledge of the truth, I used to listen. Oh yeah, I read that one. And then you got another comment, Brother Judah. A brother created a machine that gathers water from the air. That's Moses West. That is proof of water above. His name is Moses West. That's it. Yeah, Moses West. Yeah, I didn't even read that last bit. But yeah, Moses West. Yeah, I did a lesson on him. Because his machines got vandalized because, you know, Esau ain't allowing you to, because he was basically providing people in Flint, Michigan, where they were having that water problem, probably still are to this day, where they had lead in their pipes and stuff, drinking contaminated water. He was trying to bring clean water to them for free. And, you know, Esau don't like any, he don't want us helping the niggas. He's like, hell nah, you ain't helping niggas. Leave them in the gutter where they belong, he says, right? But it's all good, man. Let Esau have his fun. Let him bully us as much as he wants, because we already know what's written. We know the outcome is he's gonna lose and we're gonna gain the world, and he's out of here, man. So live it up, Esau. We don't care. But anyway, I'm gonna close out there, right? Lord willing, you've been edified by this lesson, and throughout for tuning in, I want to give all honor, praise, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham, Yahushai, Bahasham, Racha, Kodash. All right, Shalom, Shalom.